fellow romance readers, I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and this is Post-Book Depression. You know that feeling you get when you finish a good book that you didn't want to end?
Have you finished a book and just weren't ready to move on from the story and its beloved characters? You find yourself needing just a little more? This multi-trope romance podcast gives you the opportunity to dig deeper with us into books we love as we discuss all the reasons we can't move on.
Feeling chatty? You can continue the conversation with us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast or on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group.
We would be so grateful if you would subscribe to our podcast and take a moment to leave a review.
Are you ready? Let's discuss.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Amy.
And I'm Sarah, and today we're going to be discussing Gold Horizons by Kathryn Andrews.
The first few minutes we're going to do a brief review of the story without any spoilers. Then we are going to shift into a deeper book discussion. It's going to include lots of spoilers, but don't worry, we're going to let you know before we do shift into that deeper book discussion.
That's right. So before we dive in, Amy, tell us what Gold Horizons is all about.
When a woman from an elite, wealthy family moves to the mountains of North Carolina, she starts a prank war with her new, grumpy, but dreamy next-door neighbor. This enemies to lovers, small-town romance has heart, friendship, and a lot of fun pranks. Sarah, what did you think about Gold Horizons?
I was so here for this story. I love the Carolinas. It's one of my favorite places to be, so I was immediately hooked on that aspect. Hot farmer, hello. Yeah, sign me up, I'll go. I loved that. I love their prank wars that they do. They start off these kind of like frenemies in a way, and I love that dynamic of their relationship. But I also really love that they both have like a common background. They understand the pressures that their families have put on the other.
Absolutely.
That really helps them to bond, and they kind of shift over from frenemies to friends and more. And I loved it. What did you think?
The pranks in this story were so much fun. I love a good prank, especially when it's all done in good, clean fun. I loved the chemistry between the two characters. It's chef's kiss. Mwah. And the dynamics throughout the whole thing. I also like that they had that shared background between one another and had that camaraderie between them because of that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our ratings. Angst.
This was just a 1 for me.
I did 1.5.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't overly angsty. There's a couple of moments, but nothing that I'm just like,
Yeah, there's depth to this. There's depth to this story, but the angst is minimal.
Yeah.
For me, it was a pretty chill ride. Humor.
Humor, it's a 2.5.
I did too.
Yeah, I thought it was funny. The pranks take it up a notch. It's pretty...
Yeah, I feel like the pranks really add lightheartedness to the story that really made it fun.
Yeah.
Spiciness.
It's like a 1.5.
Same.
Yeah, there's some tension.
It's a slow burn.
Yeah.
And most of the description is off page. So if you're looking for something cleaner, this is a good one for you.
It's pretty clean.
Tears.
1.25, just because I kind of felt sad with some of their family situation. It just made my heart sad. I never cried.
Yeah, same.
Nope. No tears.
I did one. The family dynamics in this one were rough, but I didn't cry. I was just saddened for the way that the main characters are treated by their families.
Yeah, and there was some stuff towards the end that I was...
Yeah. We'll get into that.
Yeah. Overall, this was a 4.25 for me.
It was a 4.5 for me. It was a heartfult story.
Yeah.
I loved the pranks. I love the pranks so much. Love the dynamic between the two MCs.
I do too.
Oh, so good. It's a good. Oh, I also liked the fun reprieve of the music and the cider business.
I did
were very interesting to me. So we'll get into a little bit more of that in the deeper discussion as well.
Kathryn Andrews is a really good, solid author, so
I felt so too.
This is a good one.
That concludes our spoiler-free quick review of this story. Now we're going to shift into a deeper book discussion, which is going to include lots of spoilers. So if you haven't read this story, go check it out, and then we invite you to come back and join us on this deeper discussion. Then we would love to connect with you on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Post-Book Depression Podcast, on Facebook in our Post-Book Depression discussion group, and you can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. The story begins with Cora. She's a young girl, and we quickly learn that she has a strained relationship with her family. They've set these unrealistic expectations on her. They're a very elite, high society, wealthy family. She is a child prodigy with the cello. She's phenomenal at playing the cello. And even at 10 years old, the expectations that they have of her to perform at their elite family functions is just ridiculous. Let's start our conversation off talking about this opening scene and their strained dynamic.
This makes me sad because I'm sure that this is somebody's life where their family has very high expectations of them. I can't even imagine being a child prodigy. On top of that genius, you're only worth to the family what you can bring to the table, and for her it's her music. Yeah, I just don't understand, and I don't understand any kind of family that would put any kind of pressure on their child in such a way, but especially these elite families. And even these stories just creep me out. Like, to know somebody that's that way, like, really?
Even on top of the expectations they have of her, even if they had just that upon her, they don't even show her love. Right. They don't show her affection. It's, to them, that is all she's good for. And that's what's sad to me, because her brother has a completely different relationship, Winston, with their parents. He's very welcomed. He's going to be the next heir and kind of walking in her father's shoes. So it just lays out this foundation for her to have this inner insecurity of not feeling loved or appreciated by people close to her.
Yeah, she's very much a black sheep of the family, which it did intrigue me because I wanted to delve in a little bit more of her background of her life and her growing up, as to, you know, she kind of talks about how she doesn't fit, and then she gives us little examples in what way, you know, whether it be she's clumsy or she's this or she's that, and that does not fall under the guidelines of how she is supposed to behave. So you get that, but I would almost want to be able to be in the scenes where we see some of that interaction with her parents to understand their treatment. I know, like, at one point it's mentioned that her mom wanted her to be a ballerina, and she just did not have what it would take to be a professional dancer, and the disappointment that her mom feels in that. And I don't understand. I just operate so differently, because I don't think it even comes from a thing of, well, you have to have so much money to put that kind of pressure on your children. I think people of any walk of life or background can have these expectations that they put on their children. And I don't like it. Yeah. It just bothers me. Let your kids be who they're meant to be, and encourage that, and to watch that flourish and watch them grow and see what they can achieve on their own without you. I mean, definitely if they have a passion, encourage them, but don't make them feel like their one thing that they are really good at is all that they are.
Right.
That they can never be anything else. Absolutely. And that's very much what her parents do.
In the end, as she gets into her upper 20s, she makes the choice to move to North Carolina. There's an area there with a lake and the mountain that she's fallen in love with. She's visited a handful of times with her best girlfriends who are from there, and she chooses to make a purchase of a home there in the mountains of North Carolina. It is here that we have the delicious meet cute between her and her grumpy yet deliciously handsome next door neighbor Briggs. Let's talk about this fabulous meet cute.
Well, she's going out to explore in the dark on a mountain, some blackberry bushes at night, and she sees eyes glowing at her. And I'm like, girlfriend, what are you doing? You in the mountains.
The fact that she's been several times and doesn't account for the fact that there's wildlife in the mountains is mind-blowing to me.
Well, her friends, in her defense, one of her friends, she says, like, they spray their property for ticks. Like, she's not even thinking about ticks. I'm like, hello. Anyway, I guess it's because where we live, you know, we know things. Yeah.
We live in the city and have wildlife in our backyard.
You do, yeah. I don't live in the city. So I think it was more like vacation, like where you go to the lake. You know, this is a little bit more treated. It's That's not, true. I mean, she's on a mountain with just
raccoons.
One neighbor. Right.
Deer.
So, yeah.
Bears.
Well, it was raccoons, too.
Yes, the fact that she wasn't accounting for their being wildlife.
Well, yeah. And so when she sees that, and then Briggs hears this screaming, somebody's dying. He knows the new neighbors moved in. He goes over there, shotgun in hand, ready to save a life. He's like, she's naked.
Her robe's caught on the blackberry bushes.
Yeah, so she just has her robe and her teeny tiny panties that he's like kind of struck because, you know, he's just like naked. There's a naked woman. Wow, she's pretty. Yeah, but then when he sees that it's raccoons,
he calls them by name.
Yeah, that was so funny. When he swears at her, which she is very put off by. Quit screaming, you're scaring them. They were here first. They get off on the wrong foot.
Yes, they do.
I have to say, I did not find him grumpy, and I kept trying to put myself in her shoes. Mm-hmm. And I just kept thinking, I'm not reading any of the situations.
He's not grumpy yet. It's not until we transition over to her bringing the plant to him as an apology that he really starts to be grumpy with her.
Yeah, even then I didn't really feel.
You didn't?
No, I felt like all of her perceptions of him, I was like, no, I feel like a little bit that's
She tries to gift him a plant. He says, no, I don't want it. That's rude.
I mean, yeah, that's rude, but I don't know. She just has this, like, he's the grumpiest person. I'm like,
I didn't think he was the grumpiest person.
I didn't get that at all. And she tries to tell everybody, you don't know how he really is. And they're like, he's really well liked around town.
Let's shift over to that scene where she brings the apology plant.
The ZZ plant.
Yes. She is a plant lover, obsessed with plants. And so in her mind, that's the perfect gift to offer as an apology. And when she comes to the door and he rejects her apology, it probably to her feels escalated more than it really was because she wasn't expecting a dismissal of her apology. She was expecting him to accept her apology, make amends, and move on. And he did not want to do that. And I think that kind of sets the tone in her mind. I agree. Her opinion is more escalated than he actually is, but I do feel like he was a bit grumpy and rude to her in that moment. Sarah's face, she does not agree with me, y'all.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit, yes, I guess, but I just never read it as in, I kept thinking, oh, girl, okay. Like,
now, to be clear, that is the one and only moment in this story that I felt like warranted the grumpy title. As they get into their pranks and all that, which we're going to dig into here shortly, I felt like that was all in good fun. Like that kind of tension-filled banter back and forth. Yeah. So, and the fact that she left the label of grumpy, I do agree with you that was a little excessive.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I just read it so different. I did, like, honestly, for a little good portion of the beginning, I was just kind of annoyed with her. I'm like, oh, okay, well, your, like, upbringing and all those things that I would expect somebody who comes from an ungodly amount of money. I know you're different than your family, but you're still kind of a little bit... I don't know. I don't want to say not snob, but I don't know. I just did not see her perspective.
She's definitely an upper class woman.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I felt like she kept trying to sway everybody's opinion. Not necessarily sway. That's not right. I felt like she kept thinking everybody else was wrong. I'm like, the entire town knows him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who do you think is right? So anyway, in Briggs' defense, I just felt defensive for Briggs, okay? I felt defensive for him.
That takes us over to the scene at the cidery barn when they first, like the second time they see each other, and she's not expecting him there. And what you mentioned, she's trying to get everyone around to be on her side. He finds it hilarious. He's smirking at her. Yeah. His inner dialogue in this moment is just delightful. I'm here for it. And she's trying to get everybody on her side, and he's clearly witnessing that nobody is taking her side. And
I like how her friend Avery's sneaking a bite of a donut.
It's kind of like with popcorn watching something happen.
She sets the donut down like she's super, oh, you're right, I shouldn't be here.
I shouldn't
And then she picks it up, really slowly takes a bite. But when they leave, she tries to... How could you guys betray me this way? I'm thinking, girl, they've lived here for years. Back off.
She does get so annoyed with him that it initiates the pranks. Yes. And he doesn't know what he's coming home to. He's walking with his buddy Cole back to his house, and they hear Indiana Jones music on the cello.
That was funny to me.
It was so funny. And they come back to his porch, and there's some rubber snakes, which they don't realize they're rubber at the time.
Yeah. I think they're a cottonmouth. I would freak out too.
His reaction to the snakes, and then when Cole realizes that they're rubber. Can you imagine the humiliation?
Cole has to get the gun to shoot it because he just can't move. Briggs can't move. He's terrified. I love his description because, guys, that's me. I don't live in the city. I don't live like way out in the country, but I'm in a rural area, and we deal with snakes. So everything this man is feeling, like I have to do a perimeter check for my kids to go in our yard because we have copperheads. And I was Briggs in that moment. Like, you don't want to turn your head because you don't want it to get away. But then they realize they shoot the one and then the other one doesn't go off.
And it's like rubber pieces.
Yeah, and then they're like, is that rubber? But then he instantly makes the connection that the Indiana Jones is scared of snakes. And I was so annoyed with myself that I didn't pick up on that. Because I've seen Indiana Jones. I know he's terrified of snakes. So I just thought, because he's like, oh, good for her. She likes to play all kinds of music. He doesn't connect that she put these rubber snakes. But it's not funny, Amy.
It's so funny.
Who's terrified. It's so not funny. I'm scared of snakes. And a cottonmouth, you don't mess with those.
You don't mess with them. You're right.
You don't mess with those.
For the purposes of this story, it's very delightful.
Yeah, for the story, it was funny.
And this just kicks off a whole montage of pranks. Let's spend some time talking about these delicious pranks. We talked about the snakes, which leads to him...
Oh, this is the best.
...putting the stuff in her yard for all the deer...
Deer corn.
...to come and eat and just take over her yard.
When she goes out there... And there's 18 deer. The most we've counted in my backyard is 7. Okay? And it's delightful. We love it. Not because we're feeding them. We're not putting deer corn, but they just come.
Yeah.
So 18,
That's a lot of deer.
That's a lot. Which I was kind of like, no, not all her plants and all the
I thought of
gardening.
The plants too. I'm like, they're going to
eat.
the
gardening she's been doing. So yeah, whenever she sees all that and then her friend pulls up and her jaw just drops and she honks the horn to get them to go. Oh, that was so funny. She's like, why did you put deer corn? They're like cats. They're going to come back.
That was great.
That was the best. And then when she knows instantly, oh, okay.
She retaliates by putting his house up for sale. And Sarah, I thought this was the most genius prank ever because he doesn't know. There's just a sign at the end of the drive and in the real estate or the realtor's office that it's for sale, and he starts getting these calls. What a fun prank.
By the time it's like the 10th caller, he's like, where is this house? Like, that's my house. That was funny. And all in good fun.
Yes. And then he puts this little fake cricket in her house. First of all, he has a key to her house. Ooh, tempting.
I know. And she doesn't know.
And he kind of is looking through all the Cheez-It boxes that she has in her house. And he's walking around checking out her house. How genius is it to put this cricket in one place and then periodically come back to her place and move it around so she can't find it?
I love that Cole bells.
Oh, yeah. And calls. Where'd you put it? Where'd you put it?
Is it done? Where's it
You
at?
would know if you'd stayed.
I know. So when we find out it's a cricket recording, because I kept thinking, what is he doing? What is he putting in there? What is he doing? Oh, but I would be so livid. Oh, that would drive me nuts.
Oh, for sure.
I would go crazy.
I really liked that she didn't learn that he was doing the cricket thing until the very end of the story. That just made it so much better.
I know, because it's at his house. Because
like, there's a cricket and it's following me here.
And then when she makes eye contact with him, she's like, you!
That was the best. One of your favorite pranks that they pulled was the online profile.
I laughed so hard.
That they created for him.
That he loves feet. When she wraps her leg around him and rubs her foot on him. But when it goes to the work emails and Cole is like, did you have to put it on our work? And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, Cole's
just getting all these pictures of feet. Can you imagine? First of all, feet. Ew, gross. If that is your kink, okay. I'm not going to judge. You do you. I won't yuck your yum. But ew, ew, ew. Ew. I would be so disgusted if people were sending me feet pics.
Yes.
Blah.
He ends up getting back at her with the dead fish in her yard.
Oh, under her porch. Blah.
But he doesn't account for bears coming, which, come on, buddy, you live in the mountains. And so when she tells him... But he hasn't
seen a bear, okay, Amy, in a really long time.
They really want the fish, Sarah.
I guess so.
She lets him know that there's been a bear come to her house and it's all his fault. But my absolute favorite prank of all is the ultimate prank of all pranks, the glitter bomb.
This was the best.
With all the pink glitter. Have you ever glitter bombed somebody?
No. And I mean, it would be funny for somebody else, but if you did it to me, you better run fast and you better run far because I am coming for you. I'm coming for you. You think snakes on your porch is bad or deer in your yard. I'm going to lose my mind. I hate glitter.
I have a coworker that did something very kind for my team. It's been many moons. He's no longer at my employer, and he loved glitter. Loved glitter. So in a thank you card that I wrote to him, I stocked that thing with glitter.
Oh, Amy.
Stocked it with glitter. He opened it in his office and had glitter everywhere for days and days and days and days and weeks and months. And it was the most delightful prank I've ever pulled in my life. I loved it so much.
Do you know what somebody did to us? This is a side note. When Dustin and I got married, our friends kind of playfully trashed our house. And do you know what they did? They put rice in different locations. Girl, I was dumping rice out of shoes.
In your house?
Oh, yeah.
Man.
I would go to put on a shoe full of rice. 8 months later, we're still finding rice.
That's as bad as glitter.
They put some stuff, I won't say what they put, but they put some stuff in Dustin's pockets. Dustin was at like a work event and he reached into his pocket and he was like, let me just say, this is not the place to have this thing in your pocket. And he was thinking, okay. You know, so it was just one of those things. So the pranks were funny.
Here for it.
And I can't relate to the glitter, but I thought about the rice. Because when they go to dinner that night, I was thinking, oh, they washed the glitter off. And when their waitress...
There's still some on their
When
skin.
their waitress looks at them and she describes them looking at each other and they still have pink everywhere because it won't come off. I just thought, okay.
And Duke the dog.
That's how I felt.
Having it all in his fur. Her fur.
It's so cute.
His fur?
So, yeah, his fur.
Having it all in his fur.
His fur. So, yeah, I thought that was funny. But, yeah, don't do it to me. Don't do it to me. Like, no.
Noted.
Just no.
All right, shifting over into something more serious. We've talked about Cora and her strained relationship with her family. Let's talk about Briggs and his background with his family.
Yeah, you think his is pretty bad until it's on the lower scale. Like, you think that he has money, and then you realize, oh, she has money. She has money, and he has just a little bit of money. His family, we never really see it from, like, his parents' perspective.
Correct.
Like, you kind of see his dad just at a party that they end up going to where he thinks, how can I work that? But that's all we get on the dad. It's mainly from his brother that you see that he's not living up to that.
Let's talk about his meeting with his brother and him learning about Adele, which is his ex-girlfriend, whom he was with for several years.
3.
Yeah, a long time. He walks into this meeting with his brother thinking they're going to be talking about business-related things, and in walks Adele, and Briggs is thinking, what are you doing here? And it's in this moment that his brother walks in and announces that he and Adele are getting married. What'd you think about that?
Well, when he says your siblings shouldn't know what your ex tastes like, yeah, noted, dude, gross. So I was kind of on the same page with that. Ew, 3 years. They were together 3 years.
Yeah.
Like, you know that they've had an intimate relationship and now your younger brother's gonna marry her?
But we quickly kind of start to speculate that their relationship is not one out of affection, it's out of obligation and the family wealth that's all considered with that. So even still, it's an ick relationship.
It's an ick, and it's also sad because when he asks her, was any of it real, and she kind of looks away and he has his answer, we have to be clear. It's not because he has any feelings for Adele left whatsoever.
Correct.
After he lost his mom, he changed. She did not change with him, but he did genuinely love her.
Yes, he did.
For a period of time. So for him to genuinely love someone and then find out that it was really by his name and what his life, the lifestyle that he could offer her was all she was attracted to, that was really sad to me. And I felt saddened for the betrayal that he felt from his brother, from Adele. And now he has to go to, like, family functions and see this person for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Oh,
and they did let him know
gross.
he's expected to be at their engagement party, which is just cruel.
I know. I loved his exit from the room when his brother's like, you're going to be there, right?
Gives him the bird. It's from this meeting that he goes to Cora for comfort. And I have to back up and say, you know, we've talked about all the pranks that they've been having. There have been times where they're building a little bit of a rapport between one another. They're still not to an intimate level by any means, but they're starting to show some interest. There was the You Pick Orchard Day, that the event that they went to, and he showed her around. And so there was a little bit of intimacy between them, not like romantic intimacy, but just getting to know one another. So he finds himself at midnight showing up at her door for comfort, merely with just wanting to sleep in her bed next to her, having someone who brings him comfort next to him. Let's talk about this scene.
I love that he didn't know what was really kind of going on between them, but just felt this draw to her in this moment that he needed to be with her. And he shows up at her house and asks this of her, and she can see, I don't know what is happening right now, but I need to let him. He just needs her presence.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I tried to think, how would I feel in real life if this really happened?
I did the same.
And
where'd you land?
I like the idea of being able to be there for somebody in that manner.
Yeah.
I like the idea of being so comfortable with another person that you have chemistry, but you can't explain it. And nothing intimate is happening, but it is an intimate moment.
Yes.
I
Not
mean,
like
you're
a
sharing
physically intimate.
No, but you're sharing a bed with someone, and you're just to be able to
bring a level of comfort and support.
Yeah, to be comfortable and not even realize. I mean, like when she walks up and he's stripped down to his boxer briefs, I'm like, whoa, okay. And then I thought, well, what did you expect? He's going to sleep in a suit? No.
I thought it was realistic that she calls him out and says, you're going to hate yourself in the morning.
I know.
For this. He doesn't, which I'm glad he didn't.
No, he kind of thinks about it, but
he brings her donuts.
So got up and made her donuts.
Yes, he
didn't
did.
Just bring her donuts.
Yes, he did.
But I did love when he walks in the next morning and she's like, so you don't even knock now? Because she's standing there drinking coffee. Yeah, I don't know. Where would you land?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I like the idea of bringing comfort and support to someone. I don't know that I would have turned them away by any means, especially if you see someone that you're kind of building a rapport with and they're obviously hurting. You would want to provide some level of comfort to them.
Would you let them in your bed?
Probably. At this point in their relationship, if it were me, I probably would. Yeah, I probably would.
I think that when you know that there's feelings simmering beneath the surface, but you can't really quite identify what direction you want to go, I think it's a realistic thing.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's the next morning when he brings her the homemade donuts, which I want to come back and talk about the donuts. No, actually, let's just go ahead and talk about the donuts now.
Let's talk about the donuts.
I have never wanted donuts more in my life than I did while reading this story. Have you ever had cider donuts?
Yes.
Oh, just tell me they're as good as I want them to be.
Yes. Well, I love anything apples.
Me too.
That's like I eat an apple every day.
Same.
It's like my favorite fruit. And then strawberries is like a close second. But I love apples. When I say that I was here for this farmer and this orchard, I wasn't kidding. I'm literally here for it. If I could have an orchard myself, I would. Yeah, I love all of that. And
You're such a good banker. Will you make me cider donuts sometime this year?
Yes, I will.
Try them.
Yes, I was like, well, I need to make these now because they're so delicious.
I want them so badly.
Yeah, they're
love
so
them.
good.
Wanted to touch on that briefly. He brings the homemade donuts back to her, and this is where they have their agreement that they're going to offer to be, he opens up, talks about his brother and Adele. They make this agreement that she says, I will go to the engagement party as your date if you will come to this family function that I have coming up a month later. So they agree to this. Let's shift our discussion over to the first of those agreements, and that is the engagement party. Let's talk about the engagement party that they go to together.
I love that when she goes in, his brother doesn't quite understand who she is, but she just subtly name drops.
I love that she name dropped. And so, like you said, subtly and just sprinkling it in, showing her power, her family name. If he didn't know if she was the Rhodes after she started name dropping, he definitely did.
Well, and Adele kind of perks up because you could tell she's never gotten the attention of this one person she's referring to. I did find it interesting that she makes the observation that Adele is looking longingly at Briggs, which I thought was interesting considering she didn't really, according to his interaction with her, she didn't want him. She just wanted the name. So there's a little bit of things that kind of
maybe some jealousy a little bit, seeing a connection between them.
Yeah, that had to be it, because later when we do get to the wedding scene between Adele and his brother, it doesn't seem like they're just in it for what the other can bring. It seems like there is some form of love, I guess. Yeah, I like this scene, and I like that she's just there for him. And
I love just the little subtle gestures, the hand on the small of the back, you know, leaning in, kissing her temple, things like that.
Yeah.
I love just those little small moments of intimacy between them.
yeah, and I like that she kind of puts his brother and Adele in their place in a very not harsh way, but
Yeah.
kind of just lets them know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a good scene.
It's through all these moments together that they really are starting to grow their chemistry and their connection between one another. Let's talk briefly about that before we shift over to the party with the Rhodes family.
I love that they're feeling very comfortable with one another, and that I do feel like they have some tension, but he doesn't want to cross that line because they have to go to New York. They have to do this party for her family, and he doesn't want to do anything to put her in a position where it would be awkward or uncomfortable, or he can't be there for her because he owes her. And I love that we're just kind of, but you just get more tension.
Yeah.
You know, the chemistry just keeps
building.
getting better and better, that you can tell things are about to ignite in a little bit.
Absolutely. They end up going to this family party at the Rhodes, her family's house. She does not let on the expectation that she has from her family. And when they arrive, I love the interaction that they have with the butler, who's trying to make her feel less than.
Yeah.
And they all kind of put him in the place. He does say she's late. Winston comes and finds her. You're late. And she goes straight into the parlor where her cello is waiting and sits down to play. And he thinks she's just going to play one song. And she ends up performing the whole time. And he is just
Fuming.
livid.
Yeah.
Absolutely livid. And this is where I have a nickname alert. And I'll tell you why I waited to save it for here. His nickname for her is Goldie. We don't find out until a little bit later, other than her being blonde, why he calls her Goldie. But he does open up eventually and say it's because she lights up his life. She's bright like the sun, and no matter what, he's drawn to her, which I just, I love that so much for her because it's absolutely true of their dynamic and her. But I bring it up here because he's so upset in this moment when she's playing the cello. He walks up to her and calls her Cora.
Yeah.
And she makes a mental note of the fact that for the first time since they've met, he calls her by her actual name. And that does something to her, that he sees her in that moment. He sees what is happening, and on her behalf, he stands up for her in front of her family and stands up for how she should be treated as a family member and not as a servant or a hired help.
Right.
And so I just loved kind of the dynamic of the nickname that he's had. He's literally called her Goldie, which I love so much.
I know.
We love a nickname on this show. And then in this moment, he chooses to use the name Cora instead of Goldie.
Yeah. It was a really incredible moment. I love that her friends are there with them. And he asks, and they just kind of say this is the way it is. But I love the pride that they feel in her for getting up and walking out. And I do feel like he was justified, because Briggs has a thought of, he appreciates that he sees the pride in their face, but he's also kind of frustrated because
they let it go on for so long.
And he goes one time and he just can't. I love when they get out from the party and
Yes.
it's raining and he just pulls her over to the side and just kisses her.
Oh,
Ooh, I was telling you, it just like
so good.
The scene is incredible. It leads into their intimacy and really kind of, we're going to take this relationship further.
And they have such a special time in her apartment in
Yeah.
New York City, building that physical connection and the emotional connection between. They really open up and talk about her family, his family, and really just kind of open up. I do want to shift over into a conversation that they have about this painting that she has in her home.
I know.
She longingly looks at it frequently. He also feels connected to it, feels like his mother, whom we learn has passed away, would really love the painting. And they talk about how this painting is one that she bought from a nanny that she had years ago, the only person in her life that ever showed her love and affection. Let's talk just briefly about the painting.
I love that she had this nanny who cared so much for her that when her nanny goes on to be a really incredible artist, that she takes something because it's a reminder. I love that she has such a reaction to it. There's a point later in the story that we'll get to where that's what she needs to save. We also have to point out that it's not just the painting that is a reminder, but this nanny is the reason why she loves plants.
Yes.
She took her to the farmer's market, and that's during that conversation that he realizes the significance of her bringing that plant to him as an apology. He feels horrible, like even more for being, rejecting it, even though he put it on his table.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't get rid of
He
it,
didn't.
guys. I guess that was another part. I'm like, he takes it inside. Everybody calm down. Yeah, I just think that it's a good reminder for her that there was once a person who loved her and cared for her, because she doesn't feel that growing up.
Yeah, I loved the painting story. I loved the nanny and her feeling vulnerable enough to share that with Briggs. They really, this weekend in New York City really opens them up to having a conversation, and they're both feeling like this could go somewhere. This could be a relationship that I could want to build and stay in for a long time. And it's when they get back to North Carolina that Winston shows up at her cabin. He comes over to defend her and be a support system for her. And Winston and Cora start to get into this argument, and he starts trying to spin it so that Briggs will be somebody that she can use to further the family name, keep them from being embarrassed. He's trying to get her to marry Briggs, and Briggs overhears her say, "I will never marry someone that you set me up with." And so this kicks off this whole misunderstanding. He takes that to mean that she never wants to marry him. And that crushes his heart, Sarah.
I know.
And it just snowballs into this huge misunderstanding. Let's talk about the misunderstanding.
I did not like this
I
at
did
all.
not either.
And
This is where the angst was.
I'll be honest. I kind of heard her the way he heard her.
Same. I did too.
So when he goes to the house and he shuts down and just takes a shower and is all these things, because he just thinks, I'm not opening myself up to her. And when she comes over and she's going to apologize, and can you believe him, and all this stuff, and then he just tells her we're better off being friends, and she's devastated. I sat there and I thought, are you guys not able to see what's happening on each other's faces? Because he sees the flicker of emotion. Like, he realizes he hurt her, which he thinks is odd. Well, I'm like, at that point, open up your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Open up your mouth and say something.
Ask questions.
Say something. Don't assume. But then when he explains it, he says, I don't want to tell her anything else. If I'm not for her, I don't want her to know what she meant to me, which is so prideful. But I get it. You're trying to save face.
Yeah.
I understand wanting to do that, but I don't like it. And it makes me very nervous when I read it. And I was just very annoyed with both of them on all fronts, especially when they have people in their lives trying to tell them, you're misinterpreting that. There's more to that. You need to go talk to that person. And they wait a week.
Forever.
Ugh. Why? Who wants to live with that knot in your stomach? You know that feeling?
It's the
like,
worst.
think of a situation where you've had that pit in your stomach and it goes on for days and days and days.
You just want to resolve it.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is where why I over communicate. Because I refuse to feel that way.
Yeah.
I won't even feel that way for a day.
Yeah.
If I have even a slightest, I don't think I'm understanding that.
I'm the same way.
We are going to have a discussion. We're not sweeping things under the rug.
Yes.
We're not going to make assumptions. We're going to clear the air. We're going to talk like adults.
Yes,
And it takes them a solid week, Amy.
It does take, and in between that time, for the second time, she has a fire in her house.
Girl needs to stop trying to make apple fritters.
Yeah, she does.
I'm saying. And she's like, I turned my back. I'm like, oh,
I know.
What are you doing?
And then putting water on a grease fire.
Which she knew.
She did know that. She
I
did
knew.
know that.
And then she didn't have the fire blanket. So I was
Yes.
like, well, girl's prepared. She's got fire extinguisher.
Yes.
She's got a fire blanket. But
this opens up. He comes, he takes her to the hospital, and when he brings her home, I just have to step on a little bit of a soapbox. I do it every time I read a story with the fire. The fact that she stayed there and spent the night in a house that had fire in it with all those chemicals, I experienced this firsthand. When a house catches on fire, even if it's only in one room, that smell is toxic, and until you have it professionally cleaned, you should not be sleeping in it. That's my soapbox. I'm stepping down.
Step back on.
Okay.
Step back on.
I'm on.
We're going to address this real quick.
Let's do it.
She doesn't let him stay.
No, she doesn't.
Amy, He came back and slept on her couch.
Right there by the kitchen.
In an open floor plan.
I know. You need the masks. You need the safety masks. I know.
Okay, so we'll get back off the soapbox. Just had
Stepping
to,
up now.
not only was she sleeping in there, but he slept
right
in the same room.
And breathed it all in. Okay, I'm
With
stepping
the
off
windows open.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We had to get fire suits and, like, it's a whole thing. Okay. Anywho, stepping off, when she finds out he spent the night, she's, they finally have this conversation, but it's not until Jane comes over with her cleaning supplies and is having this conversation that she really opens up Cora's eyes to see that there's a massive miscommunication and misunderstanding that's transpired and that they really need to have a conversation, like you mentioned. So let's close out our conversation with their reconciliation and their HEA.
I was just sighing in relief when they finally say, okay, this is what I thought you said, this is what I heard you say, this is what I really meant, and this is how I really feel. I'm like, no, wasn't that easy?
Wasn't that just...
You could have saved yourself
half
heartache and pain, and...
Not half.
Not half, maybe
like
just
15%.
Yeah, maybe. It just would have saved so much. But for those who need the angst in their life, or to be like, yes, they said that and they felt that. And I'm not one of those. But they clear the air. Mm-hmm. I love that they do. And she ends up staying with him during her restoration of her house. He just doesn't want to let her go.
I love that.
And she's like, shouldn't we be together this long? And he's like, why? Is it going to change you being next door? Yeah, I was happy with the way that everything kind of wraps up. And
they even talked about once her house is ready, allowing Cole and
his wife, Amelia, to move in. Yeah, I was so thrilled with that. And now I was like, I want to read Cole and Amelia's story.
Of course you
do.
But
I know. Which, by the way, Gold Horizon is a part of this series, so you should definitely check that out. Yeah, I was very, very happy that this couple cleared the air. They come back together. They spend this time, and realize they never want to let go. They just want to have forever, whenever that may be.
I love this story so much because it had depth to it.
Yeah. Had
the lightheartedness of the pranks and just their growing tension in their relationship. It had just hit on all these little things that I really like in a story. This was a hit for me for sure.
I know. Kathryn Andrews does such a great job. It was just a really good story. It was a delight to read. That wraps up our discussion of Gold Horizons. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We hope you enjoyed it and want to continue the discussion with us. We would love to hear from you. What were your favorite parts of the story? Hit us up on Instagram at Postbook Depression Podcast or on Facebook in our Postbook Depression discussion group. You can also email us at postbookdepressionpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, keep reading.